and welcome to today's fruitful conversation about leveling up your executive game. It's been a while since I've been Googling around to find what would be the next natural step for me in terms of educating myself, in terms of putting more meat on the bone, about getting more specialized. And I came around the topic of an executive MBA or an MBA. And I was very, very lucky to meet Michael, who is a fountain of knowledge over here. Welcome, Michael, and thank you for accepting my invitation.
Thank you, Darius. It's great to be with you.
Michael, please tell us a bit about yourself and about the fact that you have one foot in each side of the reality, the academic side of things, and the practical side of things in the business environment.
All right. Well, I don't know about the fountain of knowledge bit, although I do have quite a bit of knowledge accumulated over the years. But at least what I can say for myself is that I've been someone that took advantage of an MBA himself. So I actually did my MBA at a great school in the US called Duke University. This was 20 years ago. I graduated in 2003. And since then, I led a life that combined entrepreneurship and actually working for this university, talking to people like yourself who are interested in this idea and potentially interested in pursuing an MBA, but also having been involved in the real world in Romania. And this kind of combination between entrepreneurship and working as a consultant, if you will, because I'm not in admissions, I'm actually talking to people who are prior to clicking the submit button on their application. This has come on the tail end of 4 years of working in New York City after my MBA in a corporate role. So I've done something that I think a lot of people thinking through this have done, and I'll stop with that, which is to say I did some research from abroad, trying to figure out what the main features of an MBA that I wanted to pursue might be, what matters more, what matters a little bit less, then travel to a foreign country, in this case the US, from Romania, this was 2001, and plugged right into that environment. It wasn't that I had been living in the US for a while before that. And then after that, I did what a lot of my classmates and a lot of the people who have been in subsequent graduation years at both Duke and other top MBA programs in the US have done, which is stay in the US for a number of years and add to the academic knowledge very practical work experience before returning to their home country. So it's been this sort of MBA practical experience in the US coming back to the home geography and doing things here that have to do with business. And in my case, quite uniquely, about 10 years joining the team at Duke to work in Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Well, that's quite a trajectory over there in a nutshell. If you want to look at it that way, thanks for this intro, Michael, and kudos for coming back. We're very happy to have you back over here, and I think there's more people like you needed over here to cascade from the knowledge. And I think that regardless of our question, education is the answer, and we shouldn't make the mistake to think that education ends once we, finish our high school or our first university degree, or once we finish the specialized course that we've been sent by our employer. I think it's such a continuous process that there's always something to learn over there. And okay, you worked in the corporate world and you started with the MBA, then you went in the corporate world, but you are now leading a business and quite a large business over here in Romania. Could you tell us a bit about that part?
I will say that I have become quite good at delegating, which sounds like something I shouldn't necessarily say, or at least not emphasize, but it is true that I could not do what I do if I didn't have great quality people that I can trust, not just in terms of not being kind of concerned about them doing things that they shouldn't do, but actually trust that they can make better decisions than I could in the thick of things. So that has been something that I am very grateful for. Came back in 2007 to Romania, and one of the businesses that our family owns is an automotive business. And I don't know enough about this field to effectively run a dealership and a service shop, but I was fortunate to be able to find and nurture a relationship with people that do, and empowering them, supporting them has been something that has paid enormous dividends to me, including in time to dedicate to other things, whether it's certain investments or this job, which is a full-time job that I've had at do for the past 10 years. And so there's a lot that I could say about that, but to me, the key in terms of entrepreneurship, especially in Romania, where sometimes things are more difficult than they should be, is to be able to find people that I can literally empower to do things and trust and support and all of those things. So I've been fortunate in that sense with the businesses here in Romania. And I bought a couple of businesses, sold a couple of businesses. So that was one area in which I got to use the MBA way more than in my first job post MBA in New York City. There, it was quite specialized. It was a kind of a finance job for a software company. And so I got to use a few of the courses. As an entrepreneur, and this is what the MBA does, helps you zoom out and get the bird's eye view of things. I was able to use way more of what I learned in a very, very practical MBA program, um, because you get to deal with everything that has to do with a company, and you're doing it from kind of the top of the organizational ladder.
So there are three key points over here that you've touched, and you can see me that I'm having sticky notes and I'm cheating over here. So delegating and empowering, I think that this continues to be severely underestimated as a leadership skill, and I think it's so important that these are done. But at the end of the day, we also have to make sure that we have the right people to do so. Otherwise, we're just doubling our work and killing our bandwidth over there. So the selection process of the people we bring
Mm-hmm.
around us, it's extremely important. But I came to realize as a management consultant during the past years that, you kind of attract the people that are similar to you. So if you're an organized, disciplined person that works after a process and has a methodology, you're gonna bring and keep the kind of same people around you. I'm not necessarily talking about finances now, salaries and fringe benefits, but I'm talking about the environment and the culture that you're creating over there. And I like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you mentioned so many industries. This is a thing that I resonate with very much. I'm industry agnostic myself. I do believe in what you said with that MBA, but I do believe with the business experience is applicable in many other parts. So you can be a jack of all trade that comes up with an idea that could revolutionize the commercial policy, the sales strategy of that company, although you might not be a specialist coming within the industry. So that's extremely interesting, Michael. And if it's okay with you, I would like us to take the first step. I would like to take the first step as a candidate to going through this admission process for the MBA, because I've been listening to several podcasts now, and it was said that never to pronounce badly or mistake the name of the university that you're applying for. And that was an advice given by university admission officers. So please correct me if I'm not pronouncing this correct. Is it Duke of Fuqua School of Business?
That was excellent. Yes, the Fuqua School of Business. After JB Fuqua, it sounds like a French name, but he's a gentleman from North Carolina, where the school sits. And I completely agree with you and this admissions director that pointed this out. It's a pretty big faux pas to mispronounce the name. However, I will say that you can do even worse, which is to write in your essay for Duke. The number one school that I want to go to is Stanford or Harvard or Columbia or whatever the case may be. So there are mistakes you can make in speaking, and there are worse mistakes you can make in writing. And yeah, you'll be blacklisted at some of these schools.
Great. So I passed the first step over there. Feels I feel a bit of adrenaline over here. So, what is your role as a regional director? Because right now we're not talking about an academic side of things, and discussing with you about this program, I never felt that you're trying to sell something to me. I never felt that you're applying any sales tactics. I just felt a genuine person trying to help another person level up their game. If it's here, that's fine, but in general, understanding what would be the return of investment for such an educational investment within yourself.
Hmm. I sure hope my bosses keep listening to this podcast and don't hit stop after you said I didn't feel like you were trying to sell me anything because part of my job is to actually sell. But beyond the joke, and I appreciate what you said, and that's really the case, especially since I've been in your shoes, trying to figure out if to do an MBA and where to go for this major professional and personal endeavor. So I am never about trying to shove anything down someone's throat or kind of pushing people to make a decision that they might then regret later down the line. It really is the thrust of my job is really thinking through this major decision with people like yourself trying to figure out whether it makes sense at all. And once we kind of figure that yes, it does kind of make sense for reasons that I'll go into in a moment, then it's important to find the right fit. It's not about signing on the dotted line with this school only to realize, oh, I should be somewhere else for reasons A, B, and C. And so to go back to your original question, my role is really fairly complex, and I'll try to boil it down
Yep.
so I don't take too much time with this answer. But the thrust of it is talking to people across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa about the MBA program, the executive MBA program, and actually a couple of pre-experience, what we call pre-experience one-year programs that are offered within the business school. So not all of Duke University, no undergrad stuff, no other graduate schools. It's just the Fuqua School of Business and working with them up until the point that they are applying. And then admissions, which is a whole separate team on campus, kind of takes over. And I'm there to kind of encourage people along the way and check in on them and all of that kind of stuff. Because there are some decision points after you're admitted, if one is admitted. And so sometimes it helps to talk to people about that as well. But besides that, I also do some alumni relations. We've got a few thousand alumni across this part of the world, just from the business school, but also other people from Duke that live and work here. So I'm trying to sort of encourage them to engage with the school, stay on top of things that are happening on campus, organizing events, and basically also leaning on them to act as ambassadors for our program within their own networks. Because I can't cover 160 countries, but certainly our alumni are spread around these countries and they can do that part of that work for us. And it's brand building stuff as well. And last but not least, at least once a year, but for example, in 2023, two times a year, the Global Executive MBA class comes to my region. We were in Dubai together in February and then in Berlin together in July. And I'm working with a large team from campus to make sure that they have a great experience because it's an immersive thing. And I'm responsible for corporate visits and guest speakers and some on my panels. So it's kind of these are the highlights of the job of Fluid. And it involves a lot of travel because I go
I was
and
just
travel
about to
to
say
these
that. I
places.
was just about to say that because
Yeah.
every time I talk with you is from a different geography, so it's not easy to also have this role. You have to be extremely dedicated and motivated about what you're doing, and I'm talking about internal motivation, about loving what you do. But before we move forward, I just want to make a side bracket over here. That was a very good and granular explanation, and I think you are much better at this game explaining what you're doing. in this role than I am, because I've actually tried to stop myself at three sentences. So people ask me, okay, you're a management consultant. So what is that? What do you do? And I just look at them and say, okay, how should I explain this? I work with managers, executives, to take companies from point A to point B where they actually want to be. And they looked at me and said, well, your job looks very simple. So at least hearing about you describing your job so granular, I can't say it's simple. So thanks for walking us through all those details. And to your bosses listening now, selling without selling, that should be benchmarked. So other sales folks should stay next to Michael so that some of the magic sauce over here could be transferred. So thanks for that explanation, Michael. So when is it the right moment from your point of view for us to make such a step to invest in such a program?
Hmm. The decision to do an MBA, especially at this level, because there are many flavors of MBA programs around the world, and I will refrain from speaking about degrees that give you a piece of paper and the ability to put comma MBA next to your name or at the end of it. It is very different to do this properly or do it just so that you can claim to have done it, right? So if the latter category, we're talking about the latter category, then you can do it as soon as possible so that you can brag for much longer in your professional life. But if you're going to do this properly, I believe you need to have some solid work experience under your belt before you even consider it. And that is for two reasons. One is that you will, in the MBA program, you will encounter extremely concrete situations. You will be doing case studies. You will be having conversations with other people that have worked for a good number of years in various industries and various geographies. And if you have not seen the inside of a company, you have not seen the real world, if you have not seen things done well or things done badly, then you will have very little to anchor the things that you are encountering in conversations in business school too. So that's why it's important to have proper experience before you come in. But the second reason is that you are also then able to share with your classmates things from your experience. If you just go into this program and take, then the opportunities are very limited, and frankly, you're not pulling your weight, I would say. Okay, you're paying the money, but it's not about paying the money and getting the information. It's about contributing to a learning environment and really adding value to the person next to you. So if you haven't seen those things in your own personal experience, you will be just kind of in listening mode, which is not great for your classmates. So that's why experience is important. To just give you a ballpark, back when I started, I had 3 years of experience. So I did my undergrad in Mishwara in international relations, and then worked for 3 years, then did my MBA. Now, the average work experience for an incoming student in our MBA program is about 7 years. So people have considerable experience. So it's important to get that, but it's not just number of years, it's the quality of that work experience needs to be quite high. That means you kind of try to bite off more than you can chew. You try to take courageous steps, maybe move out of your comfort zone in very real ways, like outside of one company and maybe to another. You need to show advancement. Maybe you need to go to another geography and prove that you can do some things even outside of a familiar territory. So that's what we're looking for. And people usually take 2 or 3 years to think through this while at the same time positioning themselves for the best chances to get into the school that they want to get into. So it's a very complex decision. It's kind of the simple answer, not so simple, but brief answer. And it has to make sense to you in terms of what you've done so far, but also what you hope to do after you graduate. So that's the story. That's the complete story. Not just what you've done, but how is, for example, the Duke MBA at this particular moment going to accelerate your plans towards what you want to achieve. It's not what you said, from point A to point B. If we can insert ourselves as an MBA program in that path and make sure that we make that student successful, then I think it's win-win-win.
So just to conclude on what you just said, now it takes in consideration your past experience. So you need to get your hands dirty. You need to roll up your sleeves before you come here, and not necessarily work by the clock. Having years and years of doing the same job doesn't necessarily mean that this is the natural next step for you. But if this planet of guys that are pushing themselves and constantly are coming out of the comfort zone, and if this planet exists, please take me in that UFO and transport me over there because it sounds exciting. It sounds like those people are relentless over there in trying new things, growing, with the challenge, rising with the challenge, and understanding that by standing put, sitting still, you're actually falling behind. So that's extremely important to conclude over here. And it's not a problem if you don't start with this directly or if you don't start now. This is not necessarily linked to a specific critical age, like if you're 36, you got to do it. If you're 40, you got to do it. No. And I think what you just mentioned over there about people wanting to get these diplomas and these pedigrees so that it looks well on their LinkedIn profile, on their CV, but doesn't necessarily have to do much with their future trajectory. I think that's very sad. And I think that is going to contribute significantly in sinking your satisfaction in terms of return on investment.
And this value proposition of the MBA is so incredible. If it's done well, it goes well beyond that piece of paper. Of course, the piece of paper is important because it helps you open doors
Yep.
that would otherwise not be open to you, whether it's switching careers from, say, engineering to strategy consulting or from marketing to investment banking. And these are, industries, consulting and investment banking are industries that absorb a lot of MBA talent. But it's also about broadening this perspective by being in a truly diverse environment on every metric, on every kind of chart that you want. It's incredibly diverse, and not just diverse, but incredibly competitive, high quality, and it's people that, at least, I can talk about you, people that are genuinely interested in sharing and being open-minded and sharing their experiences. So it's an unbelievable environment where you can grow not just professionally but also personally. And then you tap into a network that's truly global, that goes across graduating years and even schools and certainly different programs. And you've got truly global options in terms of what you want to do with your career. It really is a very compelling overall value proposition. But again, it has to be done at a certain level where those things do come together as opposed to this kind of playing school for another 2 years and hoping that that will unlock doors because it may or may not.
Okay, got it. Roger that noted. So my compass is now a bit broken, although you've tried to help me go north here in the right direction. But so after a couple of years now of work experience and graduating a university and working in different industries, let's say that as a candidate, I still have a challenge in understanding if I should select an MBA, an executive MBA, or a global executive MBA. There are some different nuances over here, and cost is not just one of it. But I was wondering if we can take this scenario and you can help me, exploring regardless of what I want. I don't know what I want yet. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking me as John Doe over here. So I'm coming to you and I'm asking you this question. Can you help me narrow down an answer for myself?
It's a little difficult to speak intelligently into a fairly vague situation, but I'll say that The full-time MBA is kind of a complete experience that's immersive, that you take, in the case of the US schools, you take 2 years off and be a full-time student. Allows you to do some customization around the coursework. You would do the classes and then have electives that you can pick and choose. And that is a more versatile experience, and it's also kind of more settled because you don't deal with other stuff as you are trying to go through school. But it's obviously a very costly proposition in terms of the opportunity cost as well, because you're not making money for 2 years.
Bingo.
Um, However, and if I talk about American programs that are way more familiar to me, a lot of people from other parts of the world see an American MBA as a way to not just get that degree, but also to get into the job market in the US. Because American companies tend to recruit from these top MBA programs, both people that have permanent US work authorization and people that do not. And they do sponsorship. And for example, the program at Duke, all programs at Duke are STEM certified, so science, technology, engineering, and math, which means that you get 3 years of work authorization in the US. And that, I think, is really key to people from other geographies to tack on to the MBA experience, this practical experience in a US company, on US soil, I mean. And so to think about the full-time MBA is really about, can I afford to take 2 years off and move myself or with family members? Because you're talking about people in their
Yeah.
the second half of the 20s, right? Of their 20s. So some of them have families.
Early
And so
30s,
can I
actually.
afford to do this? And number two, does it make sense for me then to stay in the US and kind of go through the recruiting process and work in the US for a number of years before potentially coming back to my home country? Those are the key considerations. And with executive MBA, it's more about, I want to keep doing what I am doing. I'm happy to kind of do this thing in parallel, if you will. And there are fewer opportunities to customize. It's more of a sort of set menu, if you will. If you do that, and it's difficult at times because you're trying to keep all the plates up in the air, but it certainly affords the ability to do something at a high level while you don't disrupt your life completely. I mean personal and professional. Well, one thing I would also say for people that want to switch careers, the full-time MBA is a better route because truly, there are these industries that absorb a lot of these graduates from top MBA programs, at least in the US. And if you're working in a particular industry and you want to break into strategy consulting or investment banking, it's usually very difficult to do that outside of the MBA.
Yeah, and we see people transitioning from one industry to another actually on a daily basis. It looks like a trend these days. So that's very valuable information. I'm definitely cutting off my bucket list the full-time MBA. There's no way I can do that. But going back to the executive MBA or the global executive MBA, because I've seen different names for basically kind of the same concept, and we're talking about now tier one universities. So these are the kind of universities, as you mentioned, that diploma when you graduate will open some doors for sure because not everybody makes it. Even if they have the money, not everybody gets accepted over there. So if it's okay with you, I would talk a bit about the admission process in general at Duke over here. And also, I would try to break it into chewable pieces on how would my annual calendar look if I have enrolled and been accepted for an executive global MBA.
Mhm. So, one quick note about executive versus global executive. It is true that various schools call these things various names. In the case of Duke, we call it a global executive MBA program because we deliver the face-to-face residencies, or we hold the face-to-face residencies. A residency being an immersive 1 week or 2 week stretch of time in which the entire class, this is cohort-based, their classes together and you have both classes, guest speakers, corporate visits, alumni panels, one-on-one executive coaching, as well as cultural immersion activities. So this is in addition to classes and team stuff, right? So we deliver these in 5 locations around the world: in the U.S., in South America, in Europe, in India, and in China. And so that's why we call it global. And it's not like you're going to teach accounting differently if you are in Berlin versus New Delhi, but there are some opportunities to meet alumni from those geographies and visit companies in that part of the world, and you can compare and contrast. So this is, I think, a valuable thing that you can bolt onto the pure academic side of this program. And when I say pure academic, it's not even the right word because it's so practical
Yeah.
that this is an academic program and it leads to an academic degree, but it is eminently applied in terms of what you go through in an MBA program. And that's a huge difference versus other alternatives on the market: Master of Science in, Master of Arts in, or PhD, or things like that. The MBA is uniquely positioned to help you understand stuff and be able to do stuff, as opposed to just kind of talk about stuff and write lovely essays on it.
In my past tense, it was very critical for me to understand really fast that I'm addressing a global market. I'm serving global clients. I'm facing global crisis with the company that I'm managing or the executives that I'm working with. So having this global experience, is music to my ears personally, because as you said, there might be some different nuances in terms of local labor if you were to look at your subsidiary in Berlin as opposed to Washington. But at the end of the day, we need to align to international standards and the mission and the vision that the company has over there. So I can tell it from experience that if you ignore the global factor, the globalization ingredient within conducting international business or being part of international business, you're on a losing side. It's painful. It's tough to say so, but that's the reality of it. So I now understand what a global MBA means, and that's pretty cool. And which are the regions that we're gonna have this entree in terms of cultural experience?
Mm. Yeah, and in between the residencies, which are kind of spaced 2 months apart, you've got a lot of the online stuff because obviously you're not going to cover everything in this program. And by the way, the Global Executive MBA program at Duke leads to the same degree that I have after spending 22 months on campus. So it is very packed. And obviously, in between these face-to-face residencies, you've got the virtual platform, and you audit classes, you work with your team, you do your readings, submit projects, and so forth. So it's very intense, both during the residencies when you're basically a student full time, but also it's very tough to do. I mean, the requirements are quite significant, even in the distance learning portion of this, especially as you have a full time job and perhaps other responsibilities as well that you need to juggle. And it's
Yeah.
not great advertising for it because it's really
No,
hard,
it's not.
but it
It's
is
not.
worth it.
But that's what we're doing over here. We're telling the brutal truth, and we're preparing someone to have satisfaction from their investment, right? Or at least to keep it realistic over here. So, guys, just because we're paying the fee, we got enrolled, and because it's a hybrid way of taking this program, which is what 12 months, 18 months, Michael.
It's about 18 months, yes.
18
Mhm.
months, that doesn't mean that it's going to be all rainbows and we're just, we're going to have the same schedule as we had before. Besides family, work, and, time for yourself, you have to put in the hours over there to study, to catch up, to be there for your colleagues, for the group assignments, to show the teamwork that is needed, and also to think in advance of what you're going to bring as a contribution to that class once you're heading in your next location. And this brings me back a bit to my initial question, which I still think needs a bit of a clarification here. So, how many region during these 18 months and for how long, Michael?
So I think the easiest way to answer that is we have 6 residencies
Hmm.
um, attached to the 6 modules. We start on our campus in North Carolina, so the Duke campus, with 2 weeks, and then 2 months later, go to South America for about 8 days. Another 2 months, Europe, or it's nothing necessarily a sequence. We sometimes
Yeah,
change
yeah.
things
I was
around.
just taking an example here.
Yeah, one week in Berlin, and then the next residency, say New Delhi. 2 1 months later, China, and we finish back on campus. So this is the sixth and final module, the sixth and final residency back on the Duke campus for another 2 weeks. So you've got about 8 to 9 weeks in total that you would be face to face with your classmates, and this is huge because it helps foster those relationships that something purely online could never achieve, and even something in which you meet for orientation face to face, and then maybe meet for graduation, or maybe they have one special week in the middle, also can deliver. So it is a very good combination, I feel, of flexibility for working professionals
Hmm.
to carry on with their lives, but do this thing at the same time, but also offer meaningful time for interaction between people in that class. And by the way, we don't outsource the teaching ever. So it's Duke professors that would fly into Santiago, Chile, into Berlin, Germany, into New Delhi, India, and Shanghai, China, to do the teaching for each one of those residencies. And we have a whole team of people that do executive coaching from the Career Management Center. We have IT support people, regional staff like myself that handle certain things, and program managers that make sure everything is smooth at these places where we hold these residencies. So we're trying to recreate a Duke environment in all of these four non-US cities, locations, and keep the quality of the teaching Duke stand at the Duke standard.
Well, I think you, again, for your bosses listening, I think you've actually pointed out quite a USP over here when it comes to Duke's program, as opposed to other MBA programs or global MBA programs that are out there without, making a lot of effort, meaning that you guys don't outsource the teaching staff or the teaching bit over there, regardless of the geolocation that is being held. Okay, I think I got a pretty good understanding of what's happening now here, but I want to go back at the admission, right? Because
Mhm.
as mentioned, we're going to talk. I'm just going to make a small joke. When you play blackjack and you have about 17, 18 points, you look at the house and you're actually wondering if you're gonna go forward or not. So I feel like I'm at 17, 18 points. And when you say hit me, it's either gonna bite you or you're gonna come out victorious, right? And this is also from the financial side of things, which we will touch in a moment, okay? Because it's not like something that you can start overnight always, and you have to become aware that this is a very serious investment. But before thinking about money, let's continue to dream a bit and go through the admission process, because even with the money, it's not guaranteed that you're gonna make it. So please.
Of course, of course. As you were talking about blackjack, I was scouring my memory for Ocean's 11 bits and references because I have no idea what you just said. But I tried to keep a straight face, and now I ruined it. But anyway, to your question, the admissions. So there's many ways to try to tackle this, and what's standard for MBA admissions tends to be like a package of items or a set of items that make up your application that really try to shed light onto what you have done, what you want to do, as well as how capable you might be to shoulder the load for the program that you have selected, and how meaningful you can contribute to the learning of the people around you, and really, in a way, trying to get a glimpse into how amazing you might be as a future alumnus or alumna of that particular program. Because as you know, very good schools, and particularly schools in the US, have a lifelong relationship with their alumni, and it's important that we select people that are set up for success. So what we're trying to do is admissions is try to get to know you, and that is done through a combination of resume, which just kind of walks us through your professional history, undergraduate transcript and diploma to see how you've done in an academic capacity, letters of reference from exclusively business contacts. So former boss, current boss, people that you work with and that know you. It doesn't have to be the CEO of the company. If he or she has not worked directly with you, it has to be someone who can really speak values, is like this and has done this and give examples and basically be your cheerleader in this particular process. So we look for those, and then essays in which you have an opportunity to talk to the admissions committee about what you've done and why. The why is really important. It's not just I've done this, that, and the other. It's why did I do this? Why did I move in that direction? Why did I turn this down? It's that thinking that we're looking for, and of course what you want to do next. And last but not least, actually two more pieces. One would be the standardized test, GMAT or the GRE, which are kind of the gold standard for graduate admissions. And that is really something that we take quite seriously, but it's not the beginning or end of any conversation. And there's a range for admitted students. In the case of our MBA program, it's between, I think, 660 and 750 is a range where 80% of admitted students tend to fall. So yeah, there is a competitive process, and I think it's like 1 in 5 that will get into our full-time program, just as an example. So it actually is competitive, and this is after self-selection because people say, I'm not going to apply to Duke if I've got this score and I've got this background or I'm not ready. So, and the last piece for us is the interview, which is by invitation only, and some schools have open interviews, some do not. And in the case of Duke, I'll talk about Duke because it's a little unique. All interviews for the full-time program are conducted by current students or alumni, which is to say that we are trying to basically preserve and defend and safeguard a culture that has to do with emphasizing teamwork and this idea of adding value to the person next to you. So those are the components, and they need to tell a compelling story overall. If one component is weaker, another one should be stronger to kind of compensate. But I don't think people should be concerned if there's weakness in one. There just needs to be something else that's special in another part of the application. But ideally, all should be strong and one should be really strong in order to actually give people a sense of confidence in their application, at least in the case of.
Well, thanks for the walkthrough. A couple of things stuck with me. About GMAT and GRE, I'm actually addressing this question for candidates coming outside US educational system and possibly had a break about 10 years until since they graduated. So is the score, do they need to take these tests again, or how are we going to tackle this kind of situation?
So test scores are valid for 5 years, and if you apply to different schools in that time frame, you can use the score if you're happy with that particular score. And one other thing I would say is for the executive MBA program, so our global executive MBA program, we offer an executive assessment in lieu of the GMAT or the GRE. And that's in part because at that level, with more years of experience compared to the full-time program, we understand it's a little bit inconvenient to just kind of go into student mode again, and we offer an alternative. But the other components are still required. It's just that on the test we've got
So
alternatives.
this is kind of an exception for the Global Executive MBA if you're coming from a different geography, culture, or the delta between the moment you graduated and the moment that you're applying and benefiting of this is quite high. Have I understood this correctly?
Well, yes and no. So it is quite standard for executive MBA programs across the world to offer the executive assessment alternative to the GMAT, the GRE, or waive it altogether. And in fact, some full-time programs even offer a waiver of the GMAT and GRE, especially post-pandemic. We did not do that, and there was a pretty strong sense around the school that we should not, because it is
Mm-hmm.
something that would provide us or provides us with a pretty critical piece of information. It's not perfect, right? It's not fully predictive, but it is quite important, and we did not want to lower that standard when it comes to our program, especially since we've asked for that for ever.
Okay, guys, for those of you out there which are not in the US, there's an alternative way of evaluating us instead of just going through the classical GMAT and GRE, right, Michael? So that's kind of the conclusion over here. You
But
mentioned,
let me, sorry, Darius, let me just
please.
make this point because I think it is actually quite critical. There's no difference between the way non-US and US candidates are evaluated.
Okay,
Absolutely
very
none.
good. Yep.
There's no, the only thing, there used to be back in the day that the TOEFL would not be required and so on and so forth. But the test of English as a foreign language obviously would not apply to people from Australia or the UK, India, for example, South Africa, any more than they would to Canadians or Americans. But in terms of all of the other things that we evaluate, there isn't an allowance made for people that are living outside or have lived outside of the US, which I think is really good because it's not like we're lowering the standards for non-Americans. It is actually the same standard, and we need to make sure that people are prepared for this experience, whether they come from one geography or another. So the waiver is available to Americans as well. I think that, I guess is the short.
Yeah, it's basically being able to speak the same language at the end of the day, making sure that what's
Very much.
being transferred over there can be digested by you.
Yeah.
So I understand about that. Now, you mentioned something of starting with why. I think if others made millions selling books, writing about this topic, I'm sure it should signal how important it is for you to start with why and understand why it's important for you to make this program and why and how it will help you as the one attending it. But now thinking of what you said, I'm just asking myself, how in God's name am I gonna prepare for this interview? Which I don't really know what to prepare, and so how should I prepare? And I've heard, things like be natural. Fine, I am natural, but I think when communicating with someone, especially at a certain level, you got to make sure that you're able to pass on what they're really actually asking for, because speaking about yourself could be everyone's favorite subject. I know people that can talk hours about themselves, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that it is of essence. So if we can take a few moments to go through this question, it would be great.
Okay. Um, the interview is meant to not kind of double the due diligence that you can do through looking at a test score or looking at a resume or indeed going through, okay, so you did calculus in undergrad and you got this and you did, history of ideas, or whatever the case may be. It's really to evaluate fit culturally, meaning this idea that I referenced before. What am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to power through a program that will then open doors for me, or do I care about what I leave behind, what I share with other people? Do I want to leave Fuqua a better place than what I found it? I know it sounds a little cheesy and a little sort of romantic, maybe even, but it really is key to the quality of the experience for everyone that the people coming in have that mindset. And I was blown away by the generosity of the people that were my classmates. And it was really an inspirational thing to witness and try to emulate, especially as you go from the first year to the second year. And now you're in a position to help people that are more junior in the program than yourself. So the interview, and this is why I mentioned that the full-time program holds interviews only with current students or alumni, because we're trying to basically figure out the answer to the question, would I want Darius, say you're in front of me and I'm doing the interview, would I want Darius to be on my team? Would that be something that would bring me joy, or something that would make me be very worried about the quality of our work product, or the deliverable, or just the nature of the interaction in the team room? So that's, I think, the idea. And then it's also teasing out a little bit things that have to do with why do you want to do it? We'll go back to the why. Why do you think Duke is the right place for you? So that requires that you understand a bit more. And I say, when I say Duke, you can fill in the blanks with whatever name of the school that you're interested in, right? So don't, it's not like just a pitch for
Yeah.
Duke, but I think it applies that, to basically be able to explain why you think going to this particular school at this particular time makes sense for you in the grand scheme of things, given the momentum that you have and where you want to actually end up. So having the plan A, plan B, or what you do after graduation, that kind of stuff, and understanding how the school is
Hmm.
unique and what it can deliver in the context of your plans and dreams, maybe even, and what you can give back to the community. So that's kind of the interview. And yeah, the natural thing is important, but you have to be thoughtful. I think thoughtfulness needs to be above like, oh, I'm just going to be like, it'll come to me. You need to think this through and not kind of show up with your hands in your pockets. I think I'm going to impress this person because, well, you may not, or you may impress them in a way that gets you waitlisted or worse.
Okay, noted. And I think that's really good to be out there and to be taken into consideration. So now that we know these things, at least we have a macro picture or a helicopter view over here. Now, let's see how do we break the bank for this. And in general, when we're thinking about programs such as these, what's the ballpark figure we should have in mind? Because they can vary. And what I'm curious to also discuss is about the indirect costs associated with this kind of experience because I need to take flights over there. I might be taking my spouse or my family when I'm there. Maybe I have to take unpaid leave from my work for a period of time. So there are quite some sacrifices you have to do, and hearing some ballpark figures could actually help you start somehow realizing what kind of effort you need to put in, material effort, so that this backed by the non-material and sweat that you're putting over there will bring some positive results in the near future for you.
Fair enough. Yeah, this is a huge topic, and I will start by saying that at least in the case of Duke, you're automatically eligible and considered for a merit-based scholarship. You do not need to fill out additional paperwork. You do not need to explain why this would be welcome. We understand it would be welcome right off the bat, but it's not a need-based, it's exclusively merit-based. So that means that your application, the strength of that application, the context of the class we're trying to build at here is going to determine whether you have a small scholarship award or a larger one and so forth. Do not count on a full scholarship when you apply. Those are very rare, and you have to be absolutely brilliant and exceptional in some area at least, or show some absolutely unique type of contribution that you are likely to bring in order to get like a full ride, what we call a full ride. So scholarships are going to be partial. Having said that, whatever is not covered by the scholarship up to the cost of tuition can be borrowed, at least in our case, without a U.S. co-signer from a consortium of banks from North Carolina that have a partnership with Duke. So just basically on the basis of your letter of acceptance, you can borrow up to, and I'll say the number now, which is the total cost of tuition, just north of 150,000 US dollars. So the tuition and fees for the 2-year MBA program at Duke, the full-time program, is just north of 150 grand. So you can borrow up to that full amount with just your letter of acceptance, which says a lot about the
Yep.
confidence of that financial institution, which is supposed to do due diligence and stuff like that. So no U.S. cosigner, and you can't really do much of a credit check on, for example, someone from Romania, right? And yet they're still willing to do that. And they must have confidence in your prospects after you graduate that you're going to be able to pay back that amount of money that is not trivial. So the scholarship is one aspect, the loan is another one. I mentioned sort of the cost of tuition, to which you need to add living expenses for those 2 years. For Duke, it's much better than some places There are some schools that are based in a large city. So I lived in New York after graduating from Duke, and I was making money, and that was great, as opposed to living in New York and not making money, which is not great at all. And certainly, our cost of living for North Carolina is better than some urban areas. But it's basically maybe $25,000 a year times 2 years, so that's another 50, right? So that's 200,000, and then there's an opportunity cost. Even leaving aside plane tickets, because you can travel to the U.S. twice or once, beginning and end, or 4 times a year. So that's a little bit up to individuals, but you're giving up salary for 2 years, right? So depending on how much you're making before you go to an MBA program, that opportunity cost can be higher or lower. That's all kind of bad news in a way, right? And it looks really daunting, especially for Europeans. This idea that they have to pay for school is a little foreign to people in our part of the world, right? So people look at me like I'm crazy when I tell them these figures. But on the other side of the MBA, if it's done right and if you take advantage of what you've done, you're looking at something extremely compelling in terms of pay packages. And in the case of Duke right now, we're starting average, or sorry, median, it's about 175,000 US dollars. And then average signing bonus is about 30,000. So you're starting just over 200,000 a year, and going up very quickly from there, and of course on the industry that you choose. So a few years down the line, all of that is amortized, and then you're continuing to earn way more than you could have otherwise. So it's very compelling if you put things in an Excel spreadsheet.
Well, I think you answered 3 or 4 questions, to be honest, in this complex statement over here. And uh, guys, in Eastern Europe, in order to understand this financial weight better, maybe you should multiply that sum that was mentioned 4 times as an average, so that you will understand from a local currency point of view what would be the impact. But nevertheless, I just want to underline some very important things that Michael said. So, first of all, you can be subject to having a scholarship over there, which might be partial. Okay, let's not consider ourselves unicorns, but still it's partial. So that brings down a bit the financial burden over there. And afterwards, the starting salaries, as Michael mentioned over there, after you've graduated over here, are basically okay. You do have to live, but let's say in a worst case scenario, 5 years from the moment you graduated, you should have a clean sheet over there. So that's pretty impressive, and it's also again a confirmation of why banks actually are willing to credit you if once you got the letter of admission. So as you can see, there's some continuity over there in terms of credibility, in terms of what you can achieve if you joined this program, if you graduated from this program. But also, I think it's important to note that Michael was referring to jobs perhaps in the US and the UK, and specific industries over here. But you know what? These days, if you want to join McKinsey or PricewaterhouseCoopers, I've seen them in more countries than McDonald's. So you know what? After graduating over here, you can still join that company, or maybe even take an expat package over there by going and working from Vietnam or Thailand or I don't know, India, and still be able to put up with the I'm calling it investment and not cost, because that's how I feel and look at this. So just to make a small recap over there with respect to this step, and I think you can save some money over there with the planes once you know that you are onboarded, because you know the dates in advance. So you got to be financially comfortable when you do this, or with doing this, because otherwise, I think I don't know, but I'm talking from my experience. Whenever I was in a situation where I was struggling with the investments for a specific business or project, my mind was not 100% up there. and it tend to defocus me. So my message from what I just learned today is, guys, make sure that this does not severely or take away all the family budget, or is doing something like really really radical, because you need to be at peace and you need to be fully focused over there to benefit from the fruits of this program. Michael, have I done a good observation here?
Absolutely. It is a complex decision, and in the case of people with family responsibilities and so forth, it needs to be a partnership, because partners that end up in the full-time program, for example, they are on an F1 dependent visa. So that means they cannot work during the time that their spouse is doing the MBA program. So it's not an easy thing to go through, although there are such wonderful partners activities and programming available at the business school, because you've got 400 students and maybe a couple of hundred partners that get to do all the fun stuff while the student studies and does all of the job search stuff. But I will come back to say one thing about, because we all of the things that I talked about are for the full-time program, and it is true
Yeah.
that those salaries are relevant to the US market, but it is the case that 90+% of the graduates from at least do end up staying in the US for at least a while. And I mentioned earlier the STEM certification, which gives you the chance to work in the US for 2 years. And even financially, it's very compelling to actually do that before potentially going back to your geography. So that's why I made those reference those numbers, because I'm not able to talk about sort of what happens in Zurich or London or Paris or Bucharest in terms of salaries. And one other observation I would make is for the executive program, so the global executive program, the cost is very comparable, to which you do add flights to and from the 6 residencies. Some more expensive like Santiago, some less expensive like Berlin, for example, for someone that's living in Eastern Europe, for example, or Europe indeed. But you do not give up income for 2 years. So that is a more compelling value proposition just purely on financial terms. Although of course you cost of living you still have, right? Because you need to live, and sometimes you live in a geography that's more expensive than North Carolina. But there are fewer job switchers from in the global program, and this idea that you would get a job in the US is not actually readily available for graduates of the global program they as it is for graduates of the full-time program. May have this kind of
No, no, I
lost
think,
some
yeah,
things
I
around
think
there,
it's
but
important. I think it's really important that we touch this, right? Because uh, people need to keep this, as I mentioned, those listening need to keep this realistic. They need to know what they're getting themselves into. They need to know what kind of weapons they have to equip themselves, whether we're talking about financing your way through it, coping, the amount of time you have to put in over there. But at the end of the day, it's quite a personal decision, and it's also a personal risk that you're taking with respect to your life and your future projection. There are no, there are no guarantees, but mathematically looking at people that want to stay and work after graduating over there in the US, bottom line is the starting salary covers the tuition of this in just 1 year. And I think this again says a lot about what Duke is offering over here through their program. So thank you for clarifying the air over here, Michael. Now, please help me understand, why does the class size matter and the distribution of talent?
hmm. I don't know exactly how the overall cohort size matters, other than to say that you do want to have a strong alumni network, right? So if you're graduating 30 people a year versus 300, you will take, right, 10 times longer to grow the alumni base. And really, the alumni base is that network that gives you access to opportunities, whether it's when you move from one country to another, or you want to switch careers, or you're looking for a contact in a particular company that you're keen on applying to. So I think it's important to have a good size, but then I think it can also be very important to not have a mass of people that you just cannot get to know even remotely in the course of a 2 year program or in a 1.5 year program. And certainly it shouldn't be the case that the class size in terms of the people that are in one room at any one time, unless it's like a special guest speaker or whatever. That should be manageable so that there can be conversation between the people in the class and you can hear and get to know the people sitting next to you. So in the case of Duke, whether it's 4, 5, or 6 sections of about 70 people, we always try to keep that intimate enough. And in the first year, we stay with the same section of 65 to 70 people. And then as you take electives in the second year, people rotate in and out. And it's the same for teams of between 5 and 6 people each. They are quite diverse, so these are not things that you choose. The admissions team kind of mixes people up so that there's good representation in each one of the sections and in each one of the teams. So I think more important than class size is where people come from. And this goes to the second point that you made. It is probably obvious, but it's worth saying that the breadth of experience that has to do with geographies, with different economic systems, with different levels of development of those economies, different challenges that come from cultural or historical roots are important to be brought into the classroom, into the team room, and have a confrontation between, not a confrontation, but a face-off, if you will, and have a rigorous debate over things because you can get very ethnocentric or you can get very industry centric and so on and so forth. And then if you have two consultants and an accountant sitting together, and here comes a U.S. Army major, or here comes a doctor,
A
or maybe
musician.
a book, sorry,
A musician.
or a musician. Fewer of those than doctors and lawyers. However, yes, exactly. Then you can be like, oh, I learned something today, which I never would have learned with my fellow consultant and with this accountant over here. Not to put
Yeah,
consultant or
yeah. It's
accountant,
just for the sake of example.
right? So this is why that diversity, which is not about quotas and little sort of games that people can play in companies and in institutions of higher learning equally. It's not about that. It's about actually bringing perspectives that are welcome and encouraged and are very different from one another as possible and engaging in thoughtful but vigorous dialogue in a space that is about mutual respect but also about intellectual integrity because this notion of respect without intellectual integrity is almost said the word. It's not something that should be pursued. It needs to be this combination of yes, I am very open to what you have to say, but I'm going to say this sounds off to me, or I have a counter example that can shed some light, and we both maybe need to go back and think about what we discussed, as opposed to saying everybody's right and nobody's right. So
It's kind of a character etiquette over there, regardless of the industry, perhaps, or occupation. You need to have that character etiquette over there so that great minds think alike eventually, and there's the chemistry that everyone is hoping for within such a cohort. Um, so thanks for putting my mind at ease over there on this topic. And I heard rumors about once you made it on the waiting list, or you're over there, you're almost there. It's a done
mm,
deal. It's sealed. You should go celebrate. Do you think this is the case?
it's going to be the shortest answer to any of the questions so far. No, no, it is not. No,
Okay.
you can listen. You can do some things. So it's certainly better to be on the wait list than to be denied admission, but or not even invited to an interview, which really kind of hurts. But you can do some things, but only if they actually happen in the meantime, in between the time that you apply and the time that you're able to give admissions an update. Maybe you were promoted, maybe you switched to a job that has way more responsibility or is in something quite different, or maybe you have a recommendation, an additional recommendation that you never would have dreamed of, maybe 4 or 5 months earlier. But to just to just kind of hope that you're going to come off the wait list without um, working a little bit at sort of improving the viability of your candidacy is a little bit naive. And sometimes it happens that because we have multiple rounds, it can be that the yield from a particular round is not what we expect, and then we can go back and actually consider people from the wait list. But you have to figure out that there are many people on the wait list, and for your name to make it off of it and into the list that you want to be on is not a guarantee.
Got it. Okay, so and now I think you mentioned something about the European folks and explaining that they have to pay for education. But so
Yeah.
I don't want to go granular into this because I know it's sensitive. But hey, guys, what you pay is what you get, especially when you don't pay. In most cases, that's just from my experience. It's not guaranteed also when you pay, but it has higher chances. That's what I've seen from experience. Now, a question for you is a European program or a pure breed US executive MBA? That's why I come as pure breed. Yeah,
Right.
that's where it's coming from.
I like the bias in that question, in the phrasing of that question. As someone who has done and is promoting an American MBA, you know, this question was easier to answer 22 years ago when I applied to do.
Hmm.
Actually, when I started, I applied 23 years ago. Because the difference I feel between European MBA programs and US MBA programs was larger. So the Americans were, have been doing this for a while, and it's like this climate that takes many components to get right in order for that whole microcosm to be what it needs to be for this kind of an education that's very interactive, it's very much plugged into industry that has people that have a great deal of experience that put together is extremely meaningful in terms of imparting knowledge and wisdom and insight and all of those things. And European schools were kind of doing the master's thing, calling it MBA sometimes, but it was still very theoretical. Very here's the framework and these are the categories and
It
blah
was
blah
in the
blah.
early days.
Yeah, exactly. Now they're incredibly competitive, and you've got really good schools in the UK, in France, in Spain, in Italy, and in Switzerland, to name just a few, that are quite strong. Not so much the case in Africa or the Middle East, although a lot of these European and indeed American schools have campuses in both the UAE and these days in Riyadh, I think, in Saudi. They're expanding. But for Europeans, the offering is quite compelling. And so it becomes a question of whether the advantage of being in the US, where I feel like the economic system is still closer to what it needs to be in terms of leveraging all of the things that you can do as a business person, um, in terms of both the work stuff, I'm not going to say work ethic, but kind of the requirements to actually do put in 40, 50, 60 hours a week, which is very typical. I mean, investment bankers do 80, 85 hours a week. Consultants probably do north of 60 or 70 in the US. And you talk to someone from Western Europe or indeed Eastern Europe about those numbers, and they say you are completely insane. But it takes, it said something like to get what you pay for. It also, the viability of an economic system and robustness of an economy does actually link to how much people are willing to risk, how many chances they're willing to take, how much they're willing to work, how many times they can pick themselves up after failing, right? And I feel like the Americans still have a significant advantage in that. And to the degree that you think that's important, in shaping your understanding of business and putting you in the company with people that have done that for a number of years, I still feel like the US has a leg up. And I'll say also that doing a 2 year MBA versus a 1 year, which is often the case, US versus Europe, is actually a smarter idea because you get to absorb stuff at a more reasonable pace in a way, right? Because there's a lot of content. It gives you a chance to do a summer internship, which is a great way to test drive a career, make some money, get your foot in the door for a full-time offer for the time you graduate. And last but not least, it gives you a chance to give back a little bit and get involved with clubs and take on some leadership roles, although they're informal at that point. And there's just more scope for logging into the life of campus and socializing and all of those other things. Then in a 10, 12, 14-month program in which you're going at a high rate of speed from beginning.
I can talk about my fellow East Europeans now. Nowadays, they're not such strangers anymore about the idea of working 10 plus hours per day
Mm-hmm.
or even on Saturdays. And I'm talking especially about entrepreneurs that are in the first 18 months with their business, or they burned their bridges with their former employer and started the business, so they're highly motivated for this to succeed. So this is no longer such a UFO when you're talking about it. And actually, kind of all the executives that I've met, and I'm talking about whether we're looking at companies which are with 30 employees or companies with 300 employees, it's pretty much typical is to just have the 12 hours availability bandwidth over there, that shows their people, the team out there, that he's available for support and leadership. Because when you're running global teams, there are different time zones, there are different geographies there. So, and coming back a bit to my initial observation, I personally start with culture and then think of business. I don't see this all the time. People just start the business and then figure out how to deal with the cultural barriers. But I like to think that culture comes first, because if you don't understand how someone is genetically designed to operate in a specific environment, you're not going to get the butt out of him, and you're going to end up not having a very fruitful partnership over there. By getting the butter out of him, I was thinking in a way of benefiting from the creativity, the energy over there, so the synergy between the two is created, so the business is pushed forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I got the gist of things over there, and yeah, it's becoming more popular, these European programs. But I still think that although McDonald's believes that hamburger tastes the same way in 180 countries, I still believe it's a bit different in the US. Okay, so what exactly is increasing my chances to get through admission and be accepted from your experience?
I mentioned the components of the application, and I think it's worth thinking well in advance of applying how you can shore up each one of those. Because you can't do anything about your undergraduate transcript, graduated, that's done. But in terms of who can recommend you, someone who doesn't necessarily have this nastiest title, but someone who is going to go to bat for you, to use an American idiom, to really speak convincingly, passionately, powerfully, and intelligently about what you can do, as opposed to someone who says, "Yeah, I know that is great. I can't give any examples. Good luck with him." And so that's troublesome because then admissions is going to be like, what was sorry, sorry, I keep using your name. I
No,
forget
no,
my
I think that's fine. I think
most
people will laugh about it.
I thought, well, what was this guy or this lady thinking, selecting this recommender when he or she should know that the recommender is a little clueless as to what they should say. So being thoughtful about that, doing your essays, and yes, not writing Stanford instead of Duke or the other way around. In your essays, taking time to talk to alumni or even current students to understand more about what the school is about. so that you don't kind of tell us what we want to hear, but a little bit tell us what we need to hear,
Yeah.
right? Because there is a balance there. You don't need to just kind of recite things from our marketing brochure, but you should have an understanding of what makes us a little bit unique, what the difference between our program and other competitor programs are like. So in each component, you can find ways to fine tune the message to demonstrate that you have a plan. We fit well into that plan, and you are very likely to then, this goes back to you, that you're likely to say yes back to us if we were to extend you an offer of admission. Because you're trying to sell yourself to us if you say, yes, guys, come on over, we'd love to have you. And I say, no, 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 thanks, I'm going to go to this other school down the road. Then we feel quite sad. So it's all of these components. If you think through all of them, including of course the interview and so forth, and setting up the various components, and obviously having as good a score as you can, the standardized test, if that's one of the components. That's really it. There's no magical bullet or recipe. If you have it, you have it. If you don't have it, you don't have it. It's kind of as simple as that. But this bringing this idea of what you can do for the school, what you can do for your fellow students, and what you will likely to do for the school long after you have graduated is something that I think a lot of people miss out on because they want to say, "Oh, I'm so great," but it's about
Yeah, it's not
okay, what.
necessarily focusing on the selfish side of things or, the personal gain that is over there. It's kind of giving back something in one way or another. And that's being associated with this name means that, helping others to benefit of what you were lucky to benefit of and then improving their lives and automatically the lives of the people that will be around those folks that will create this added value, hopefully.
Hmm.
Okay. And I want us to, so I have a yes, first or second option kind of question for you. So when we look at the vast majorities of candidates graduating, do most of them go in the entrepreneurship path, or do they actually go to a new job, better paid job, or an upgrade in their career?
Definitely even people that come into the program with an A plan about entrepreneurship, about incubating this idea, about raising capital, about finding a partner, and on and on. Especially from the full-time program, you haven't made any money for 2 years. You spent a ton of money. You really do not necessarily want to borrow more money to start the company and maybe make mistakes with your own capital and so forth. And when you look at the pay packages that your classmates are basically looking at or getting, then it's very tempting, I think, to say, oh, I can wait. This entrepreneurship gig can wait for another 2 or 3 years. I'm going to go make a ton of money as the employee of McKinsey or Goldman or Amazon. Apple, I should say Apple, because Tim Cook is one of our graduates, so I can't say Amazon. I have to say
Wow,
Apple.
really nice.
Yeah, so both Tim Cook and Jeff Williams, who is the Tim Cook to Steve Jobs, if you will.
Yeah.
The CEO, they're both graduates of Fuqua's MBA program. But sort of to go back, it's very compelling to say I'm going to do these things, which are going to give me really nice income and give me a platform for even further development and going to open doors. Because if you work for Goldman or McKinsey, chances are that you will work with top names on the Fortune 500 list within the first 2 or 3 years, and then you've got another alumni network, McKinsey one or Goldman one, that you can leverage in terms of future potential, not just your huge network, for example. So a lot of people, even that want to do entrepreneurship and end up doing it later down the line, are probably taking a detour, quote unquote, to the world of corporate.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I've seen very few entrepreneurs dropping a 300K per annum salary. to start a new venture. Yeah, usually it's kind of the opposite, and maybe immediately after starting a business would not give you the environment to completely test what you have put in from this program. So I do think that looking at this objectively, it would be safer because we're not trying to encourage anyone here to sell their house and create discomfort for their families just to start this or get the ambition, the blind ambition out there. We encourage people to join us over here by having a plan which is as risk free as possible these days, right? So if you think about the financial investment, if you think about working a few years to pay that off and maybe create a little nest egg over there for you to have the 12, 18 months needed to realize if you're going to make something with your new venture, your new business over there, or it can also be the case that you keep in touch with the alumni over there, and one of them has a seed round and now can afford to hire a chief operations officer, a chief marketing officer, and you can be the next candidate in line for this. And this is where I'm going at my next question about the networking opportunities and about the alumni environment. What's to mention over here, Michael?
Yeah, so one quick follow-up on the previous topic would be that it does actually happen. So people find partners, find ideas, certainly have access to capital and know-how and sort of industry insiders, whether it's venture capital, private equity, or something more sophisticated. So these ventures are often born from the MBA sort of classroom, but I'm just saying it's less prevalent than the stories of people coming into the program would lead you to believe. So that's the only. I'm not saying it doesn't happen because certainly you've got a lot of the ingredients and people with experience from before. They maybe don't need another 2 or 3 years. They know exactly what they want to do, and they were just looking for the set of skills, network, and maybe capital or partners to take this idea from their heads into the reality.
No, no, got it, got it. But I was just building on the kind of the scenario you were giving as an example that we created some debt, we made a financial effort to come over here. We should now play it a bit safe for the next maybe 3 to 4 years, but that doesn't mean we can work as a side dish with our plan, maybe have an A/B test, maybe. So there are a lot of, this is very, very relative, but yeah, you're absolutely correct. There isn't an exact answer over here. You don't know what kind of capital that person has access, what kind of networking. So at the end of the day, time will give us an answer for every graduate coming out of this kind of program.
Fair
Okay.
enough. Yeah, I just didn't want to paint the picture that
Yeah.
this doesn't happen at all because it actually doesn't. It happens more and more these days. But it's also true that there are a lot of people who say, okay, I can do the corporate thing for a while and then maybe come back to my idea for my own business. To answer your question about the network, this is really one of the things that you get out of a top MBA program. A truly globally distributed group of people that have gone through the same thing that you have gone through at various years in the past, and they are typically very successful and they're well placed to facilitate opportunities for younger graduates of the school in subsequent years. So the access to a not just global distribution are not just the number, the sheer size of that network, but also the positions that our alumni occupy, the dynamic in their professional journeys, which are for the most part quite outstanding. This is why I'm talking about the difference between tier one and tier anything else is I think just what kinds of jobs, what kinds of levers of influence our graduates have, our alumni have, and that younger graduates or fresh graduates can tap into. The responsiveness of, on average, people in our alumni network is quite high, in part because of how we recruit, the things that we try to instill while they're spending their time on campus. The nature of being in Durham, North Carolina versus New York City or Boston or Philadelphia or Chicago means that the community is much tighter knit, and so that carries over into the sense of belonging to a community of alumni for people that have been out of school for many years. So it's very encouraging to be able to, and sometimes you might need to write a follow-up email or place another call or leave another message or reach someone to someone else. But on average, this is a huge benefit for any graduate of ours that they are able to plug into a group of people that are enthusiastic about their experience at Duke. And not just the Fuqua School of Business, but it's the undergraduate programs and other graduate schools. So it's all big community. And as you probably know, Duke is very selective on even more selective on the undergraduate front. It's one of the most selective universities in the US. They admit about 8-9% of the candidates. So it's extremely high quality. And so you've got very smart people, highly accomplished that you can call fellow grads. And that is huge in terms of the doors it can open for anyone that is maybe at the starting point or closer to the starting point of a global career.
Oh, I can resonate with that quite well. In fact, I think any mandate that I've taken or mission uh, as an interim manager, specifically general manager, I think it was someone that I've interacted with in a professional environment and had a chance to spend time with that after the years, when the chance came, we were a phone call away. Because for example, I haven't spoken with you for 8 years, right? But a lot has changed in these 8, 9 years. So yeah, that's why I see the value. I mean, this is where I see the value in these networking sessions. And I also think for our colleagues located in Eastern Europe, I think they do have an advantage over here because it's been quite a few years now since I've played the role of a liaison between Asia and US, and I can tell you guys that European talent is pivotal for serving global clients. So a lot of American companies out there that have been successful on their own market and want to go globally are looking into Eastern Europe for delivery sites, delivery centers, centers of excellence. So there's a lot that can, come as a spillover from these networking sessions. I'm not necessarily saying that this will happen, but I'm just saying, if there was the downside of perhaps costs over there, there's the upside of opportunity of doing business in your geography once this program is over. Final piece of advice for the folks looking at us or in listening to us, Michael, and thinking about jumping and attacking this kind of step in their career.
Hmm. It's difficult in a way to distill the quality and breadth of examples that I've seen along the years, especially the last 10 years, during which I've spoken to thousands of people interested in an MBA. But I think the combination of courage and this willingness to be bold and tackle something that is beyond what you're familiar with, combined with humility of knowing that you will encounter people way smarter than you are, more accomplished, able to share things with you from whom you need to learn and absorb and yes, try to give back to other people in that environment. I think this combination of between boldness and humility is one that can truly go a long way towards both kind of selecting the right program and actually putting the best foot forward in front of admissions committees. And for that, you can work on preparing the ground for a story that makes us think, yes, or makes the admissions committee think, and makes you think actually that an MBA is the right next step, natural next step, so that you can accelerate your growth, and that requires sort of this boldness, but also saying, look, I need to do this because I need to meet people that are above me and who can really help me understand the world way better. And I'm willing to play the role of someone who's listening, someone who's following, someone who's assisting, as opposed to always trying to be the smartest and loudest person in the room. Not always the same, usually not the same thing. And so I think this could be it as you think about your own career. What's the right time to do something like this? Don't do it too quickly, but also don't wait too long. And maybe have a plan B as well. So if you're applying to these schools and you know you don't have a lot of time, you can't apply next year or wait another 2 years, have another school maybe that you feel like you have more chances to get into. It still has to be very good, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the top 3 or 4 names in the world. So it's this kind of thinking, and that's the best I can do, I think, in terms of final advice, maybe advice.
Michael, it looks like you're made of Teflon today because any question I would throw towards you, you were able to respond without a sweat. Thank you so much for today, and I think you kept more cool than Gotti did in his third or fourth trial, and people trying to get in. So this was very cool today, and I appreciate all the explanations and the clarifications brought. And just want to say something in the closing. Guys, if the product that you're looking towards in terms of MBA is too vanilla like and you haven't heard of such filters and vetting processes as Michael said, and it's a bit too good to be true, but the price is attractive. Think again because I think it will cost you more in the long run, and you're not going to get the time back. You might get the money back, but you're not going to get the time and the networking opportunities back. So that's pretty much from my side. Michael, is there anything else from your side?
Just wanted to say thank you for this invitation. I appreciate what you do, and we obviously have a great relationship even outside of this sort of podcast context. And I hope that people listening to you have found this useful, depending on how you want to structure things. I actually love my job, this job for Duke, and I'm always willing to talk to people one on one about if this makes sense to them. So I'm happy if they contact you or reach out to you, and you want to put me in touch with anyone that's kind of serious about thinking through this. I'm happy to do that. So
That's
thank you for
definitely
taking
gonna
me.
happen. So prepare your inbox to be spam. So with the first occasion, that's definitely gonna happen from my side. And they won't be listening to me; they'll be listening to you because you had the golden message today. I've just been the moderator, challenging you to give the best possible answers out there. Thank you so much,
Pleasure.
Michael. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.